Hello, guys.
Quiet. It's fine.
We will wait for all the attendees that will enter in this webinar. In 2 minutes, we will start. So I will tell you that with me there will be Max Corbellari.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. We will wait a bit. This is our second international webinar, and in some minutes we will start.
Yeah, I think it's pretty normal that it takes a couple of minutes for everybody just to jump in, register, and so on. So as soon as we're ready, Marco will give us the go ahead, and off we go. Right, Marco?
Yeah.
Bottles in the back.
Yes, exactly, Max. In some minutes we will start, and we will begin this wonderful webinar. And we have some special guests today with us. Okay, we wait some minutes again.
Well, the great thing is, Marco, while we're waiting for everybody to jump in, is just to let the panelists know as well that we've got some fantastic people from all over the world that have actually registered with us today. We've got people from India, we've got people from China, Canada, US, Romania. So really, Russian Federation. A lot of the guys have jumped in for the ice hockey side of that. We got quite a few people interested in the basketball, the skiing. So I think it's going to be a fantastic webinar today. Top guys are going to be talking. I know you're going to introduce all of them when everybody's in. So that's going to be fantastic. But it's also great to see this big interest that we're having from all over the world. DESMOTEC is a worldwide brand. So it's really fantastic to get these guys involved and open up the borders to everybody and share this knowledge.
Yes, exactly. I agree with you, Max. And it's wonderful that we have all these people from all around the world. And I'm very happy to be here today and to have this wonderful guest with us.
We got a couple of guys from Portugal, which is really fantastic as well. So welcome everybody. I know Spain's involved, Romania, Finland. It's really fantastic, Marco.
Yes, Max. We will wait some minutes and then we will start. I say hello to everybody right now. So.
Just 1 second, guys. Let me check.
Okay, guys, sorry, but
yeah, I would suggest we get it going.
Mm-hmm.
I know the number keeps increasing, so people keep jumping in, but somewhere along the line we have to start this just to make it fair for everybody that was on time. I'm sure everybody else will jump in as we progress. And don't forget also that this is recorded, so it will be made available to everybody that registered. So if you miss anything, even the beginning or in the middle or whatever, we will get that out to you. So thanks for registering as well. Marco, I'll let you do the honors and we can start it off.
Yeah. Hello guys, hello to everybody. I'm Marco Porta, I'm a strength coach, and I'm working with professional athletes, especially in alpine ski. But today I will be your host for this international webinar. We will talk about eccentric training, how to return to play and stay on the field. So we will go through different topics from the physiotherapist side, from the physio side to the strength coach side, with practical application with the inertial devices. Today with me, there will be Max Corbellari, that is a man from DESMOTEC. Ciao, Max.
Hi, guys. Hi, Marco. Thanks for having me. Just two quick words. This is DESMOTEC's second international webinar. We've got some great panelists. I'm not going to waste a lot of people's time. Just have a great time. Please send questions. And remember, very importantly, at the end of this webinar, there's a survey that will go out. This will allow us to become better in the future with our webinars, get more information, and understand what everybody wants to hear.
Okay, Max. So before we start with the first guest, I want to do small poll. Okay, so we'll launch you. Please answer to these questions. Okay. So please. Only to know which is your area of interest, so we can also adapt this webinar, and also to know if you know this type of technology when we speak about inertial devices and flywheel training. Because for us, it's really important, your feedback, and we want to know.
Absolutely. It's a great way for us to make webinars better for everybody, the more information we have. So please fill it in. It takes 1 second, and we'll give you, Marco will publish the results straight away so everybody can get an idea.
Exactly, Max. Okay, the 80% of the people vote, so we will wait some seconds and I will publish the results. Okay, perfect. I will share the results with you. Okay, so these are the results of this polling, and there are different areas of interest. And of course, Rehab is one of the the most important area. And the 85% of you know already this type of technology, but of course, we will introduce you this type of technology. So, Max, I say that it's time that we start with the first guest.
Absolutely.
Okay, the first guest is Toma Vasilescu. Toma is a physiotherapist with more of 13 years of experience, and he worked for the Olympic gymnastic team of Romania, and now he works for the national football team. He his presentation, he will talk about from the rehabilitation to the sport performance after injury, especially with a long jump athlete case. Hi, Toma.
Hi, hello, Marco. Thanks for the invitation. Fine. After 1 day of working, very slowly after this period, and now we are getting slowly back.
Okay, this is good, and I know that you will speak about these cases. So from long jump athlete, and if you want to start with your presentation.
Yes, yeah, I will start. I choose this case because it was one patient of mine with a groin injury on the adductor and also on the rectus abdominalis. So he cannot train and compete in long jump. So, okay, let's start rehab. And after that, we went back to sport. So we will see how good we manage working with him. So now I will share my screen with you.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Everybody is seeing the screen, the presentation?
Yes, it's perfect.
Perfect.
Okay. So now let's go. So one of the problem we had in the first phase, it was his pain, because during rehab we saw that his biomechanics was pretty poor, so he cannot do any jump training. He went from 7.8 meters, he went to 7.61 centimeters. So it was a diminish of distance. He had no pain when he came to me. The echographic investigation showed that it was a scar tissue, so we can start already the rehab phase. So this is a picture of him in the last competition before the injury. So you can see on the hip, okay, the hip joint, that he went inside the jump, okay, he went very close. So that is meaning that he was breaking his movement. So if you break a movement, then you can increase the risk of injury. So after we analyzed together what he did wrong in the past, then we try to guide our rehab protocol. Okay, so in the first phase of rehab, we use the eccentric DESMOTEC isoinertial device to work more analytic. Okay, here we work a little bit on the adductor side. Why? Because the eccentric part is very important after the injury, and it's important for the scar tissue. After that, we divided his normal pattern movement. Okay, here is the hip flexion with the straight leg. Why? Because when we do this, okay, we want the eccentric phase to stretch a little bit the adductor and also the rectus abdominalis. It's a very, very small presentation because I want just to understand the importance and why we choose in the first phase to make more analytic, and after that we want to go to increase the performance to go back to sports. Okay. Now here, as a long jump athlete, okay, he need to have this phase of hip flexor when he's going vertical. So that's why we train it in the first phase with a very heavy weight, because we wanted for him to have more control. We don't want to increase the speed, because if we increase the speed and we have a very poor control, okay, he will injury again. Then we go a little bit in combining the adduction also with flexion and also with extension. After that, after I think five rehab sessions, then we tried a little bit to go more in specific training. Okay, we take the load off and we want him, okay, to increase a little bit the speed. Why? Because for an athlete and also for in a rehab phase, it's very important for the patient to have the timing very good. Okay, the timing between concentric and eccentric phase of the muscles. Okay, here you can see that we use also an elastic, okay, to diminish the impact, okay, and to gain more viscoelasticity in the tissue and in the muscles. After the V work, because it's very versatile, it's very functional, then we started slow by slow also on the D. Why? Because I wanted for him to increase the speed, the power, and the more explosive force of him. Okay, yeah. So here in the first phase, we went with 2 pro discs, okay, and we just want to have very, very good control. You will see later in the data that in the first part, he had a very poor control, and after that, we diminish a lot of the of the phase from concentric to eccentric phase. After that, again, we go more into the field, because when he came to our center, it was very difficult to take the V from the wall and take it on the pitch. So then we start to separate his movement from the pitch, okay, and transfer it and work with them with the eccentric isoinertial devices. Now, here I put him a lot also to increase the strength and the power in the rectus abdominalis. You can combine very much of exercise, of core activation, because I think also Paul will speak about core activation. It's very important to make the athlete to be ready in all kind of strength condition, in rehab, and also in performance. Then we put him more difficult exercises with a proprioception pillow. After that, with the left foot on the skateboard. Why? Because it was very hard for him to coordinate these two different movements. And here on the right, you can see that we put him to maintain also the upper body workout, okay, in isometric, and then from the legs to work more the lower part of the rectus abdominalis, where he had the injury and where he could have in the future, if he don't train it, okay, he can have a re-injury rate. Now, again, with a large disc, so very light disc, but we went in high speed. Normally, when I work with him, I work like this 2 days per week during 2 months, I think. And after that, when he could come to the practice. So I try to modify the exercises, like, okay, one day we want to go more in speed. The second session, after 2 or 3 days, we want to go more in power. Then again, modify 1 day speed, or in the late stage, you will see that we work a lot more on resistance training. So we put the software to 3 series of 60 seconds. Why? Because he needed to have the resistance of the body, and also to train more also in the cardiovascular area. Also, we train a lot also the calf, because when he go, okay, and put the leg on the pitch, then he need to push, okay, to be more explosive and jump, because we wanted him to transfer the energy very fast. We don't want him to lose time during one phase to another. You see, in the left video, he breaks very slow, but then I wanted him to go more explosive in concentric phase. Why? Because when he jump, he need to go in concentric very fast to gain more height in the jump. I will replay this video again. And he understood that we need to work more on eccentric. So here on the tablet now, you will see the peaks above. Okay, those are the eccentric overload working over the concentric. So the small diagram is the concentric phase. So he was able to maintain the eccentric work more than the concentric phase. Okay, so here he was very tired, but I wanted him to work with him in the fatigue state. Okay, to increase the performance, I wanted him to go more in the fatigue state. So here is a report that the software gave us. So it's very interesting for all the physio and the strength coach over there, that he could maintain a ratio of 1.2 of eccentric over the concentric. So we wanted him, okay, to understand that we want in very, very high speed, we want to control more the eccentric phase than the concentric one. So he just worked, I don't know, let's say 3 minutes. So something like that. Also for jumping, very important to have very short movement, very fast, to gain the recoil of the body. Yeah, so that's why we didn't do only segmental movement. We now started also with the calf, also with the ankle, also with the knee and the hip joints. So we start working in high speed with very, very powerful exercise. And here you can go after that to work isolated for the calf muscle if you want. Especially that for a long jump is very important, the Achilles tendon, because they have a lot of problems, because if they don't train a lot of plyometric and viscoelasticity training, then they will have problems with the Achilles tendon. So we managed to work with him in power training, speed training, force training, recoil training. That's very important for a long jump athlete, because he needs to take back the energy from the pitch and transfer it to the next movement. And especially in the first phase, okay, we wanted to correct the movement pattern from better and safe for a better and safer biomechanics, because we saw in the first picture that his angle in the hip was very, very close. That is meaning that he will injure his rectus abdominalis and the hip flexors and the adductors. So here it's a small chart that I created from the software. So in the left, we have the maximum power concentric and average, also the same for eccentric. So you can see that it's only 1 month in between on squat and in lunge. So in 4th of July, okay, he had 597 watts. In only 8 sessions, okay, he gained 2.3 increase of maximum power in concentric phase. And what is very, very important, that in eccentric phase, he gained 4 times more in only 8 sessions of training. Okay. In the lunge, the increase, it was bigger. In only 8 sessions, he gained, let's say, an average of 5 times more power in the lunge session working. Here we have two charts from the maximum power test that we use on DESMOTEC, because the software allows us to see that. So I just made an initial test on maximum power. So we saw that his power was something like in concentric was 1500 watts, and in eccentric was 14, almost 1500 watts. Okay, and the second, wait, excuse me. Oh, okay, and the second one, it was 2100 watts in concentric and 2500 watts in eccentric. So that was a certain gain in the maximum power test that we use for him. when I tested him the last time, it was in October, I think, this was his numbers. So he started working with me in rehab phase for 500-600 watts. Okay, and we managed to bring him to a state of 2800 watts. So that is a very, very big increase, also in power and also in strength. After 1 month before, okay, so after 12 session is this data. So is the initial it's in the left, okay. So we managed to increase almost 9 or 8 times more in the lunge, and 5 times more increase in the concentric and eccentric phase in squat. So only 2 sessions per week that showed us that okay, we can have an increase, a safe increase of power in concentric and eccentric phase. So that means that we increased his power during long jump. So here is the picture in January, I think it was the last competition of him. Okay, the hip was more extended, and when he started going up in the air, he was more straight. That means that his force transmission, okay, he gained a lot during this workout with DESMOTEC, that he managed to make the transition. Instead of braking, okay, he can go more in a vertical jump. After this, he managed to jump 8 meters. So that means something around 40 centimeters increase. So I think it's a very, very good increasing for, let's say, 2-3 months workout, 2 sessions per day. So thank you with my presentation. If I've got any questions, please ask me, because Marco?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Toma. I will stop your share screen.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I managed okay with the time. So
yeah, it's perfect. Okay.
Yes.
And sorry, away.
I will.
Okay.
Okay. Listen.
Perfect. And okay, I have one question for you, and you. Now we have one question from Joao Ferreira.
Yeah.
Did this athlete already do eccentric training before the injury, or did he start only in rehabilitation? This is a good question.
Yeah, he didn't do any eccentric training on devices. He just trained what he do normal in the athletic part. So he just used very big weights and go, but not a specific eccentric training.
Okay, perfect. Because
but my idea was not only the pure eccentric, but it was more to gain a lot of viscoelasticity and recoil from his body. It's not only that pure eccentric I wanted.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I think that the good of this technology is that you can work on many things in one time. So eccentric training, but also concentric and both. So on the short strengthening cycle. And this for us, I think, is really important. So Toma, thank you very much. We will go through this webinar, and now I want to introduce to you Lucas Bernard Sallet.
Thank you.
And Lucas is a physiotherapist and is also a strength and conditioning coach for the France ski team since 4 years, and he graduated as a rehab specialist. Hi, Lucas.
Hey everyone.
Hi. And today, Lucas, we will speak about the use of the V-line for rehabilitation. So is another field. So is alpine ski is also my field, but I'm really interested in the presentation of Lucas. And so I will give you the word, and you can start with your presentation.
Just share my screen. All right. So Perfect. Is it okay for you?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Great. Hey everyone, thanks for watching, and thanks a lot DESMOTEC for the opportunity to learn, speak, and share with you all. I hope you will understand. My English is a bit poor. So yeah, as you said, I've worked with the French ski team since 2016 with the rehabilitation group. And we will talk about our use of the V-line in rehabilitation with the French ski team. First slide for a small introduction about the rehabilitations group. We are 2 physical trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, as you say, I think, and 2 physiotherapists. We work with alpine skiers, Nordic skiers, snowboarders, freestylers, who are currently in national team. I think it's important to precise that when I talk about rehab, because of it's not the same word in French, I talk about the period that they can start the physical development. For example, at 3 months post ACL surgery. Before, they only have physiotherapist treatment. This is what we call reathletisation in French. And for us, before the reathletisation, it's rehabilitation. Reathletisation for athletic things. So last year we have made the rehabilitation of 55 athletes from the national team, H4 high school. I'm sorry, it's in French, but as you can see, we work on all body parts. For sure, the major cause of rehabilitations are knee injuries, which take an average of 4 months of recovery. We also have back, which is a big problem in ski, ankles, shoulder, and unfortunately, more and more concussion. An important fact, I think, in skiing is that it's not an integrated sport. It's nearly impossible for us to just try to ski. For example, a football player can start to touch the ball early in recovery. For us, we have to wait a long, long time to be sure that the athlete is ready to ski. The first time the athlete can practice the sport is very delayed compared to other sports like return to play. And the athletes must put a lot more work before returning to competitions. So we have to be sure that everything's good, everything's okay before going back on slopes. So we started using DESMOTEC's machines 2 years ago. I work a lot with the vertical machine and really enjoy the fact that we can make everything with it, thanks to its versatility. So I will show you some of different exercises we use in rehabilitation with athletes who are currently in rehab. I've shot all the videos last week and yesterday, and we are all wearing the masks, excepted immunized athletes, and trying to respect all the hygiene protocol. Let's go. So, first athlete who is currently in rehab, D, 21 years old, and been skier from Europa Cup with an 4-month post-surgery ACL. Obviously, we start with the hamstrings. I use isoinertial usually at 4-5 months post-surgery when there is around 20% of deficit with the isokinetic machine and a good hamstring score. Before we work with hypertrophy, nervous coordination like neuromotor, balance. Maybe we can use isoinertial earlier with a very low resistance setup. But to be honest, we didn't try and we don't feel the need to try it at this time. Let's start with the first video, active extension with posterior chain work. First of all, be careful with the strap. At first, we put it over the knee to reduce the potential drawer. We can see the feet. We ask for the athlete to touch the feet on the ground. Before starting to run fast, to increase the ground impact, I use this exercise to work specifically on the end of the oscillation time of the walk of the run. This is the moment when the semitendinosus and semimembranosus contract both in synergy with the aim to stabilize the tibia before touching the ground. So I think it's a really important thing to do before starting to run fast. And then we also work on muscle coordination with all the posterior chain. Sometimes major glutes can help hamstring to contract like this, and unfortunately sometimes not. Also, we work on all the range of motion with an hamstring prototype machine. We added a hook on it back to work with isoinertial, and it fits perfectly. But sadly, oh, sorry for the sound. Sadly, even if it's patented yet, I'm not allowed to show you more for the moment, but I'm excited about telling you more as soon as possible. Specific inner range work in open kinetic chain. This exercise induced a big mechanical stress on the hamstring. I love this exercise. We can work the inner range. Here it's a bit early, so it's not a big inner range, but not so bad. In fact, for ACL rehab, when there is an autograft using part of semitendinosus and semimembranosus, we have to take care and to work them specifically. In this case, in a 90 degrees flexion, biceps femoris is a lateral rotator and a starter. Keep an eye on the movement to avoid a specific work on this one rather than the semimembranosus and semitendinosus. You can see a slow and fast work here. Just one thing, be careful with the gluteal compensation. Then a 2 times world champ with a real leg length inequality. In France, we call real leg length inequality when this is a bone problem and not an osteopathic problem. Here it's 25 millimeters on the right tibia. She suffers a unilateral ischemic lysis without spondylolisthesis, for sure following the leg length inequality. And we noticed that she needs a strong shoulder girdle in order to maintain the spine. So we added a force and balance work with the isoinertial last year. Here it was yesterday. It's only for the video. We have many things to do before now. We also work in endurance with only one disc sometimes. And for her, I prefer not to work with a leg in front of because of the big spine asymmetry. Second video with the seated bench press and the big balance work. We follow with a shoulder, I think, yeah. When we pick up the V-line 2 years ago, I use it first with the shoulders rehab. In my opinion, the V-line is a very useful device for the shoulders rehabilitation. Obviously, it's impossible to make an analytic work because of the necessity to stabilize and co-contract, but we can work thanks to isoinertial in all the range of motion of these different movements. We have a balance work, a co-contract work. In rehab for the shoulder, we have to gain amplitude. In the amplitude we have gained, work the balance, and then strengthen the muscles. Here we can both stabilize and strengthen the muscle. So we can see M, 22 years old, snowboard cross, who suffers a shoulder dislocation. R1, R2 with the good shoulder, not injured shoulder. And I think it's really interesting because here it's the injured shoulder and you can see a big difference between the right and the left shoulders. We still have here a lot of work around the rotator cuff and the muscles between shoulder blades. And here in R3, which is still the same problem. Then, sorry, right. We can add different and complex movement like the start in snowboard cross. Really important thing for her because it's in this movement that she has the shoulder dislocation. So she feels really anxious about that. And we started slowly thanks to his inertia. Here is shoulder girdle work, shoulder girdle, sorry, with high speed and a small range of motion. It's a big muscles coordination work. And then we have a functional one, but we have many different exercises like this. We want to use as soon as possible V-line in order to test the shoulder and working on a specific protocol. For the moment, for the shoulders testing, we have isokinetic test in open kinetic chain, CK Quest, the closed kinetic chain upper extremity stability tests, and a functional test in closed kinetic chain. We want to add a fatigue and coordination test in order to integrate the shoulder in the body mapping. I don't know, maybe following the Kabat's diagonal movement or the seated medicine ball throw, SMBT. In fact, I'm really interested by the concept of integrate movement, but for the moment, we have small technical difficulties with the tablet, so we work every time without screen controller. But we are really excited to work with it soon. Let's continue with M, alpine skier in World Cup this year. She suffers a popliteal conflict. She underwent 2 surgeries with 2 botulinum toxins injection, and we have to strengthen all the muscles except its calf. So we can see here dorsal flexion with the aim to work on the anterior tibial. We can add supination, adduction if we want to isolate the muscle. Just one thing, the rope has to be stretched during all this exercise. It's not good here, as you can see. Posterior tibial with the adduction and supination. And then the abduction and pronation of the fibular muscles. On all these small range of motion exercises, we added disc to increase the inertia. Here, I think we work with 2 pro disc. Don't see the time, but think it's good. So last one, quickly, with a gluteal work. N, 25 years old, alpine skier in World Cup, a downhill man, suffers a Morel-Lavallée syndrome on the gluteus major and medius fascia. He was 7 times punctured, infiltrated. This is a real nightmare. So in fact, there was a big bruise on the gluteal muscle. So first of all, we work around excentric, and then isoinertial to increase the mechanical stress. Thanks to this, we synchronize, organize the muscles fiber. So you can see different exercise, glute medius, glute major. Here it's only the abduction. And here it's not for the rehab, only for summer beauty. Now here we work nearly than the same exercise than the first one. So in order to conclude, we use, as you can see, isoinertial on nearly every pathology. It's important to strengthen muscles in all the range of motion with each muscle's contraction, and isoinertial really facilitate and accelerate the rehab, especially for main shoulder. So we really enjoy using this machine. Thanks for your attention.
Okay. Thank you, Lucas.
Yep, give you the screen.
Thank you so much. I have two questions for you. Okay, the first question is that you show us how important is this type of technology from a rehab point of view. Do you think that this can be useful also for preventing injuries? And did you use this technology under this field?
Yeah, unfortunately, when they are in rehab, it's too late. So maybe the other physical trainer working French ski team will be better person to give you an answer. But for sure, if we use it in rehab, we still have to use it every time, and in order to prevent injuries. So maybe it's even too late if we have to use it now. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's a good thing for the prevention.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is the question from Raf Daniels. And he asking if you have any experience with the sacroiliac joint.
No, it's a good question. And no, I try to remember, but no, I don't think so. No, sorry.
Okay, so I will make the last question and we will go through. And how do you manage, because I was interested in the inertia, so the disc that you use on the different exercises, how do you manage the use of this disc on the V-line?
To be honest, when I shoot all the video, after I see the videos, and I have seen that because of it was honestly only for the video, and I just told to the athletes to take a time with me, and that's it. But for both, we don't use it right now this week, and I think I have put too much discs. I use big discs, Pro and 2 Pro, when I want to use it in force and in small velocity. Small velocity because we work in posturology. I don't know if it's the good word.
Yeah.
And we want all the movements being good with a good muscle coordination. So I prefer work slowly when they can for the first time, and then put more velocity and work with more instability and everything. So for me in rehab, my use of the isoinertial is that I start with maybe big disc or slow velocity, and then when they can do that, I increase the velocity in order to be sure that all the muscle coordination and the muscle activation is good. So that's the way I use this, but I'm pretty sure that there is many other way to use this.
Okay, thank you, perfect, and thank you for the answer. I know that it is also an answer from Fabrizio De Lazzari, but we will answer after during the roundtable because it is also a really good question. Okay, thank you so much, Lucas.
Thank you.
See you later. Okay, now we will go through this webinar, and now we will have with us Roberto Marocco. Roberto is a certified strength and conditioning specialist and CAA. He's working in the professional basketball team in Italy, and is also managing a course for the University of Turin in sports science. Ciao Roberto, and welcome aboard.
Hey Marco, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we are. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, it's perfect, Roberto.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be a part of this event. As you said, now I speak from my point of view. I mean, the strength and conditioning coach's perspective. So I tell you about my experience shared with the medical staff and with the therapist in our club that is working in Italian Second Division Championship. And I'm not gonna explain any specific injuries recover, but I wanna show you our philosophy to face in general to a really sensitive moment of the career of our athlete. Oh, wait. Okay, so we have to start thinking about the injury. Injury is a consequence of sport, and when it happens, we have to think that the athlete has to recover from a physical and mental trauma. So we have to plan the recovery phase in every detail. That's why we want to divide it into 3 stages. I'll show you quickly. The first phase is the acute, immediately after the injury, when the doctor made his diagnosis. The second phase is the reconditioning phase. This is quite longer, and we start to load the injured district with a gradual load. The third phase is the last one, the return to play. So here we are going to prepare our athlete to practice with the other players, so with the team, and we are going to rebuild this confidence on court. Well, I start thinking, how can I use this technology in this particular process? And especially, which is the key to use this? I started looking in sport research for many studies, and I figured out that you can have a greater muscular involvement compared to the regular weights. You can work on prevention and on rehab, and you can find a lot of examples. And you can also work on performance, for example, for power in jump and sprinting abilities. And I think that this is a really important key, because when we think to an athlete after his injury, after his recovery process, we have to keep in mind that he has to perform. So I don't mean 70, 80 or 90%. He has to be ready, okay? And he has to feel in confidence. He has to feel better than before. This is for his confidence, obviously, but also to avoid injuries. So you can also find a research guideline. For example, this worked with 4 sets and 7 reps with this recovery, with the complete range of motion and maximal effort, okay? But after this research, this really quick research, I start thinking of my sport. So what happened in basketball and what is my goal? If you see a game, you can easily understand how a player has to accelerate and decelerate as fast as possible, have to change direction, and to move with great instabilities because of the contact. So we can go back to our 3 phases, and now we know which is the goal. In the acute phase, we have to work on general strength and conditioning. We cannot imagine our athlete seated on the end, at the end of the bench and just resting, because it's too important to maintain high levels of strength and conditioning. The second phase, again, working on strength and conditioning, but start to involve the injured district. In the third phase, the return to play, we put it together in global training. So let's see the goals for every single phase. In the acute phase, the first one is the priority is respect the injured district. I mean, it can be important, it could be important to rest, but not only, maybe it needs therapies or any kind of treatment with the medical staff, with the therapist, with the physio. And then, as we saw before, we need to train with all the other segments to maintain high level of strength and endurance. So if the first part is up to the therapist, in the second part, DESMOTEC can be really helpful. I show you a really short example. Imagine an athlete with a problem to the upper body, to the one upper limb, for example, with a broken hand. In the first phase, we have to maintain his conditioning. And if you can do that with the specific movement, with the transition from 2 legs to 1, working on balance and conditioning on every plane. So keep working. It is important. Can you imagine with a broken hand holding a weight? How hard is it? How hard is it? And you can do that also with lateral movements that are so specific for basketball. If you have any ankle injuries, for example, you can still work on the supine position with the other machine, with the V line. Okay, don't focus on the rope that sometimes is loose, but try to understand how many exercises can you do to maintain strength level high. Okay, the second phase is quite longer. It's the reconditioning and start with the injured district movement. Have to start working on that. And after, you can pass to the analytical strength and then global strength. Only after you can start working on balance and symmetry. Once again, if the therapist is in charge of the first part, we can do a lot of work on the other. And these are something to show you about that. At the end of this phase, before going on court, I need that our athlete, if had an ankle injury, has to be ready to resist to this kind of load. Eccentric load, for example, in this case for the ankle, or if the problem was with the muscle, can you imagine the hamstring? He has to be ready to support this kind of effort in eccentric phase. After, he can be ready to go on court. But we can change. Imagine a shoulder injury. How much is the instability on court due to the contact with the opponents? And how much is this instability that we can create here, step by step, from quadruped position to plank position? The eccentric load is here is really important because create a lot of instability on all the body, but also on the injured district. And you can pass from the ground to push-up position till more specific position like standing, for example, with a row exercise. Okay, now let's focus on the third phase. Now we got it. We have to work on strength and power. We have to work on acceleration and deceleration. Then we can move on court and with specific moves, speed up, slide on the side, change of direction, jump, land on 2 on 1 leg. But before that, DESMOTEC can be really helpful to work on acceleration and deceleration. And this is another example that I want to show you. The pulling or pushing patterns, okay? Adding a step forward and backward. Here you can recreate eccentric and concentric load in pulling or pushing, bilateral or unilateral, and also on the side. This kind of exercise involved all the body, from the bottom to the core to the upper body, in anti-rotation or in rotational exercises, with lateral anti-flexion, with specific moves, from a split to one leg with a little bound, and with a really specific movement like pivoting, that in basketball is quite important. Okay, after those three phases, what has to do our athlete? If we consider the D machine, the D line, we need that every athlete has to control 4 categories of exercises: the ankle dominant, the knee dominant, lateral moves, and hip dominant. And now I'll tell you why we use this kind of technology. This is the first reason. You can understand every rep, how it goes in terms of power, but you can also understand when our guy is running on fumes and the performance starts to decrease. So if the power is the goal, you can stop training. But from the CSV, you can also understand the range of motion and control every single rep. Then from the report that we have, we can check, as usual, power peak, average peak, in concentric, in eccentric. But another parameter that is really important is the standard deviation. And this can say the quality of the set, how far is from the average value. What about the V line? I want that the player can control 5 categories of exercises, from the ground to the quadruped plank or plank till the standing position for pull or push or lateral moves. And here again, I'll show you a little example that why DESMOTEC technology can help us. This is our athlete, Tim Bowers, is working on a simple rowing exercise. Everybody knows the Renegade, with 2 dumbbells with 8 kilos each arm. So I think Tim is working with the left with the 8 kilos, with the right with the 8 kilos. But if I do the same, if I work with the rowing pattern, the V line, I can understand quickly this, the difference can be great. So it can be an asymmetry from left and right. And imagine in a moment so delicate as the return to play is, how important is correcting the asymmetries. So this is what we do. And our philosophy is that if you have to build a house, you start from single elements, you put it together, then you work on details and you try to build the house. For every phase, you need a toolbox, and you have to find the right tool, the right instrument for every phase. As well, if you have an injured player, you have to follow every phase to arrive to the performance, to get better than before the injury. And here again, DESMOTEC can be a really important instrument in our toolbox, and we have to know when and how to use it. That's it. These are the references that I've used. And this is me working at home during the quarantine. And I want to thank everybody, and a special thanks to these 2 people, because these 2 guys gave me a great help in the last period. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Wonderful presentation. And wait, because I think that we have one question from Nuno Jimenez. We talked about rehabilitation. I would like to know if you also use it to prevent injuries, and how often a week you use this system. And I mean, Roberto, I want to say to you, working with your athletes in the basketball field, how many times per week did you use strength and so prevention work?
Okay, in average, every player works twice a week on strength, but it depends. Players are so different, so we have young players who work 3, 4, and sometimes also 5 times a week. So it depends on the kind of player.
Okay, perfect. The second question, because I like it, all these type of exercises that you consider on different planes of movements. I know that you progress through all these planes, and as you show in your presentation, but how often you change the plane, adding complexity to your work with inertial devices?
It depends, one more time, on the level of the athlete. When he can manage the load easier, okay, we can move on. So maybe a few weeks are enough. Maybe we need more, okay?
And for this, are you looking at some data on the software, or are you proceeding also looking at the quality of the movement? I know that seems easy, but of course it's not easy when you work with athletes.
You're right. I used to, it depends, but I used to check where we start with the single player and where we arrive. So if we have an increment, if we increase the performance, okay, we can switch and we can move on. And it depends from the starting point. Okay,
perfect. Thank you so much, Roberto.
You're welcome. See you later.
Okay. We will proceed with the last but not least guest that we have. So the next is Paul Gagné. Paul is a posturologist, and he has been practicing for more than 35 years. And during his career, he trained many Olympic athletes as well as professional athletes in different and several sports. And he will talk about specific eccentric training for ice hockey. Hi, Paul.
How you doing?
I'm fine. And you?
Good, good. I'll press the share screen and let's get the show going. Do you see it well?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, I picked the picture is Jonathan Huberdeau. He was one of the best hockey player in the world, plays for the Florida Panthers, but very interesting story that he was the first hockey player from the NHL to ever go on a Desmo, on a very old D Sport that's right here. That's the original one. That's 9 years old. And that's my baby that I train on it every day. That keeps me young. I'm born in 1961. Huberdeau actually owns a couple of these apparatus himself. And it helped him a lot to go over many, many injuries. And that was a big, many of my hockey players, they have it. And he suffered a very, very bad injury about 3 years ago. Someone stepped on his Achilles tendon during a game, and it got section 95% of it. And that could be, if you don't understand skating or any type of sport, especially in hockey, that could be fatal. And because of the system we use with him, it helped him to come back to the last 2 years. He had his best season. This year, because of the virus, he could not finish, but he was going to beat his all-time record. That's why I put him on it. And you'll see him later. He's going to train with a doctor. Our head radiologist, that we do research on fascia with the DESMOTEC system, as his own systems in his house. And with Zoom, I'm able to train them together and to bring more science into it and as support to our troops. Basically, as a posturologist, I always look at what makes a good hockey player. Because of the format, I won't go too much in specific. I want to give you an outlook of what I do with the hockey players and the philosophy behind injury prevention. I would say I've never met a hockey player that doesn't have a kind of injury. It's the fastest game in the world, a lot of impact, and the fact that they have skates that they can't use in the gym compared to a soccer player or even a rugby player or a basketball player, it's a big disadvantage. For us as strength coach, it's very hard to predict what we did in the gym will transfer on the ice. because of the skates. We don't train in the gym with skates. Skiers, Marco would tell you the same. It's the problem. That's why Marco and I we've been working on our apparatus, especially the D, with ski boots. And that's the goal. See, the ultimate goal is that people are able to work on these phases in movements faster. This is Peter Straka from Czech Republic, later Philadelphia Flyers, and we do with a laser, light feet, different type of movement. And this is the ultimate goal for a hockey player, able to change direction very quickly without any problem. We also use a lot of analytical on the ice. We have computer devices to work on posture and to see all the strides. This is one of my players from the Vancouver Canucks, and we analyze each step of it with high-level computers to make sure that what we do in the gym, there is a transfer on the ice. I'm watching his angle. Normally, the guy should not lift his foot. Then I take note. Then we'll modify his training. And since we've been working with the DESMOTEC system, now it's been 9 years, the change was so quick because of the speed of the overload of an eccentric. Everybody's talking about eccentric overload, but I'm talking about speed of the eccentric overload. And our system is very unique in the world that we're able to go way faster than anything than a belt because we have these cords in the mechanism. We're able to make changes very quickly of the angular and make sure that the posture of the athlete, the whole blade is in contact with the ice. That's the biggest problem. When I measure posture of people, 90% of my athletes, when I start with them, they're forward to the gravity line, and that's a problem on the ice. The blade is curved and it's very short. If you don't apply the whole force from the heel to the toe, you will not have any type of speed. You will have kind of a choppy, kind of running style. The player thinks he's going fast, but when we measure with our skating analysis system, he's actually going very slow. And that's where posture plays a big role, and especially the foot. And this is where we work on a lot of different angles to measure and to make sure that the athlete has a very good postural system. I won't go too much in detail because that would take, it's a 2-day course we give on that, but I put it in a PDF for you guys. You have access to it to make sure that everything I say is in relation. Same thing with the foot in skating. The feet are more sensitive than your eyes, the skin of the foot. That's why in the old days, a lot of hockey players played without socks. They wanted to have the feedback. That's the disadvantage of skates. You don't have any feedback from the ground. You're up in the air on a 2mm blade, the width. And that's where your foot becomes so effective in balance if you train it properly. And this is where a lot of injuries will happen in shock absorption. Same thing as the role of the foot. You have to understand that it's like a coiling. And when you do proper exercise with it, it will help it to become a lot more aligned. As an example, all my players, they do these type of segmental control of the feet, toes. It's very difficult to control, especially on one leg, lifting your feet like a piano. They should do that all the time because of the boot of the skate makes their feet very, very ineffective. There's a lot of ankle sprain amongst hockey players in dry land. We have to make sure that they don't run too much lateral stuff because they could sprain their ankles. They don't have very, very good angle or of the foot. They don't have a good control. That's why most of my players will train when they can bare feet, even on our DESMOTEC system. This is very, very important in that. We'll use also different type of movements to create harmony from the glute, from the whole IT band and the fascia to control all the movement. Because most of the athletes, they have what we call in our language, a valgus foot. And that's the biggest problem. They're collapsing in their skates, and that creates a lot of abnormal tension. We're using a lot of our V-line device to create high-speed eccentric. It's one of the best way to work for controlling of the ankle is to work on different angles with the peroneus longus and posterior tip. Those are crucial at high speed to control skating movement. And he's a football coach, but since they implemented that with their American football guys too, it really reduced the ankle injuries. But in hockey, it's crucial that they have a very good control, motor control about the foot in the skate. Again, because of the blade and the changing of direction. That's very important. Also, the soleus muscle could be one of the most postural muscle, very undertrained. Usually you see people in the gym with a seated calf raise, very inefficient, going like this with the V, very efficient at high speed, eccentric overload. And you could change the angle. An ankle has a lot of mobility. You can't go in a straight line like on a calf raise machine. It's very there's no transfer into the ice or on the pitch. And that's my goal. Whatever I do in the gym, I want to see a transfer. I don't care if my athlete lifts 500 kilo on his back. There is no transfer. My richest professional hockey players that made millions, sometimes they had a hard time at the combine. They didn't even do well, but on the ice, they were really strong. Again, don't get me wrong. I don't make them weak. I want to make sure that they're well balanced, but I want to see their power displacement on the ice and not in the gym. I've seen many of the guys squatting 250 kilo, never played a game in the NHL, and I've seen guys having a hard time with 100 kilo, made millions in the NHL. This is where, when I started 9 years ago, especially only the D sport was invented back then, immediately my regular athlete became super athlete because we were able to load them with abnormal load that they could never achieve with a barbell on their back. And also the speed of contraction is very, very crucial when we do physical preparation. We always talk about what is physical prep. You need to answer one question, and I put it on a PDF, that whatever you're going to do in the gym has to exceed the needs or the demands of the sport. If you don't do that, let the athlete play the sport, and that's it. This is why when I started to work myself on the D 9 years ago, it was a shock. I really felt right away a transfer within a couple of sessions on the ice and whatever I was doing. I skate better now, and I was a high-level hockey player. I'll be 60, and I skate better now than I skated when I was 20. My athletes that I would work with always seen a big difference. Now, peripheral. The system allows us to really work the stability and work all the angle. Now I'm working eccentrically on the peroneus longus, and you had a fibula problem at the Barco ligament, and that's what we're working. Many of my hockey players, they have that. That's very unique. You can't do that with a regular pulley or a slower machine. The movement is so fast that you need to create adaptation that will transfer when you put your skates on. Very interesting movement. Also, we'll use different angles. This is Jonathan Drouin for the Montreal Canadiens. He's one of the fastest skaters in the NHL. He owns his 2 devices. I train him near his backyard. We're using the functional kit from DESMOTEC. It's a very unique system that it's a double pulley. Because of the swivel, you need to really control one side and the other side. This is Nathan Beaulieu from the Winnipeg Jets, one of the best defensemen in the NHL. I rehabbed him a couple years ago for an MCL tear, and we've been doing a lot of these type of movement. Again, with one ankle is hooked to one pulley, it's that functional kit. That creates movement in the hip flexor in combination with stability of the foot. Both feet working very, very hard, especially the left one in stability. That will transfer into his performance. A lot of my athletes, we use these devices as a warm-up before we go on the ice, and they warm up way quicker. Also, we combine it with other things, like different type of rebounding movement. That's why I like to combine. It's very easy to work on elastic strength, very important in rehabilitation. He sprained his ankle last year playing ball hockey with his friends. Again, I don't want that because they're not very good at that, and I had to rehab him. And it's an example of we mix what you've seen on the V, the soleus, peroneus longus, posterior tib at high speed, mixed with trampoline. We have different type of level of trampoline. This is a very soft one. We have harder one. We go with eyes closed, eyes open, and we mix it up in these protocols. Then we want to go more into more dynamic movement. That's what I did with him after. Different type of changing of direction. This is a harder rebounder trampoline that really requires good timing and a good recoil and coil. That's the key for a good athlete, but especially in hockey, that they're constantly moving from one direction to another. And that's the key in efficiency. This is Jonathan Huberdeau, the guy you saw on the, when I talked about, this is when I rehab his Achilles tendon. I use stroke glasses also, plus the V, plus balls to really bypass his brain. What happened is that with that multitask movement, his brain will momentarily forget that his left foot was really badly injured. You have to remember that a trauma to a tendon or a ligament to any part of the body is not only a trauma at that joint or fascia. It's a trauma to the brain. The brain registers it. How many times you rehab someone with a sprained ankle or who had like ACL surgery, they're perfectly correct in the gym, on the pitch or on the ice. You watch them walk and they limp. It's because the brain didn't forget it. Stroke glasses are really, really good to de-engram bad patterns. And this is what we use a lot with injury, not only with injury, but also for injury prevention. My main work, I work as rehab specialist, but also I work at the brain level to prevent injuries. And that's really efficient. Within a couple of sets, we use that. This is one of the top goaltender in the NHL, Marc-André Fleury. He's 36 years old, and we work on that. If you don't know hockey players, goalies are very, very efficient to move laterally. That's why we put a lot of emphasis on lateral power. Very difficult to use any type of device than the V or the D to do that. We've tried with pulley. There's not enough recoil. This is very efficient, especially if you use the stroke glasses to create more of a perturbation. Then his brain has to adapt. When he doesn't have it, his velocity in the net increases very, very fast. Training the brain at the same time as the joints. Same thing, he's 2 meters. Imagine that guy could never squat before I saw him. Very hard, big guy, 125 kilo hockey player. And with this, you should have seen him the first time he did it, he almost fell off the D. Then after, this is not right away. And I use a very light disc. I only use a medium disc to create that. It's very hard to keep that timing. And now he was able to almost juggle with stroke glasses. Those glasses, it's like blinking your eyes while someone is throwing something. And he's able to load himself, a very good squat pattern, and now he was injury-free. He had a bit of a labrum tear, slightly tear on his right hip, and now he's injury-free because of that, because of the new pattern he gained by squatting at high speed and also multitask. Same principle we use also with more specific. That's Derek Brassard for the New York Islanders. He's a centerman. This is a move they do to win a face-off, and they have to. And also he had a bit of abdominal problem at one point. We'll use the stick at high speed to create that peripheral stimulation, and his mind is going to work. Also, he had a wrist injury a couple of years ago. In hockey, the most common injury is wrist. They get hit, they fight sometime, but there's not a lot of protection. And they use their stick like an axe. They get hit a lot. And he had the same, that helped him a lot to get back, because as a centerman, you need to be quick to draw, to bring the puck back in every angle. And we use that on the ice, but also in the gym. Another part we use is different type of lateral traction to create more of a proprioception and also to warm up before we'll use the D or the V. And that's to engram, very good for abduction, adduction, and the lateral traction will create more of that synergy. They want to manage their center of mass. That's critical for a hockey player, how to manage your center of mass. We do a lot of different exercises in combination with the V and the D. I kept that slide because it's very interesting. After the hockey players, I work with a lot of figure skaters. And on the slide, you'll see it's Gabriela Papadakis, if they know her, with her partner, Guillaume Ciceron. They're 5 times world champ. They were silver medalists in Pyeongchang. And my other couple that I work with my partner, Scott Livingston, and they were from Canada. And that's how they lost. But they're 5-time world champ. With Madison Hubble, she's with her partner, Zach Donahue. They're finished 4th at the Olympics, but they're U.S. champ. we use a lot of these device movement to create harmony before we use. This is a part of the warm-up we use before we use the D and the V to create a good timing in movement. In ice dancing, as in hockey, posture is very important, even more because they get judged. They need to, the long program is 4 minutes. It means you should see the guys in that. Guillaume, her partner, and Zach, especially Zach Donahue, is built like a hockey player. They have to. They hold a girl for about 4 minutes, and they're always in contact. We use a lot of their technique with our hockey players on ice to create a better stability and core control. Same thing, that's with the Mini V. That was the first one that came last year. I begged Alberto to get it, and I got it. Now we're playing with Jonathan Drouin at the field, different type of movement, and it's very portable. I like it. We play outside with it, and for the hockey player, it's very interesting. Working a lot of lateral control, lateral power at the same time, improving hip, and there's a transfer in skating, but also in when they take a shot. You hear my voice because I always want to show you how I coach it a bit. This is Nathan Beaulieu doing lateral motion on the D.
Motion, up short, up short, up short. That's
I always coach them with vocal.
Arms, like right under the chest. Good. Keep your elbows in and absorb and pop. Good. Nice. Turn, pop. Turn, pop. That's it. Extend the body. Extend. That's it. Not twisting too much.
Yeah, it's very important to use the voice, especially now what we've seen with Zoom. I've been using it for the last 8 weeks, and it's very important to how do you address to your athletes. Not only, okay, go there and do it. They listen. When they get very tired at a high velocity like we're doing, they need constant coaching. That's why my voice is a bit raspy. This is again Marc-André Fleury, the goalie, doing different type of moving using a hurdle for lateral power with the V. Very, very difficult to time. He has a pro disc on that. And he has a tremendous amount of power and acceleration, deceleration. It is crucial for a goalie to be able to achieve that. And also, I like always the feedback because they're all number guys, and I want to see if there's a good harmony amongst the movement. And it's pretty interesting. I want to see when there's a breakdown, and I will compare numbers to see how the movement is fluid and efficient. Efficiency for me, it's all everything about performance. Again, we'll use different type of training. This is called an impulse concentric training mixed with the V. Right after the V, they will move to a different type of movement to create more of that power of impulse. Very important on ice. Then, not enough, we want to bring it to a more fluid movement on the treadmill. See, we use the skill mill from Techno Gym, very efficient to create a lot of power, lateral power, but only in concentric. Then in the order, we'll do the D, very high load, pro disc, very high eccentric, very high inertia. You need to move. It's not that fast. Then the V, lateral, either over a hurdle or over an obstacle, very high fast. Then the band, it's pure impulse. And the fourth one in the circuit, we'll use that. It also acts as a conditioning. My guys, they never do pure cardiovascular training. They don't run, they only train on that, and they come in at the camp, usually with 60 VO2 max, that's the norm. Also, the efficiency, we could use it as a circuit training. Now, I got 4 athletes. This is Max Pacioretty, played for Montreal Canadiens with the Vegas Knight, was the captain, working on the V. Landing on the trampoline, it's not hard, it's very difficult. Beaulieu on the lateral part, and Eric Jelena, big guys, like almost 2 meters, doing a different type of movement with a pulley. That's easy to work in a group. We work sometimes 6 people around. We have 2V at the gym, 2D, 2V, and it's very efficient if you only bring in a couple of other tools, and you could train the whole team in a very, very easy and fast way. Also, frontal plane training, very important for lateral movements, very crucial. Very, very interesting, balanced movement to create harmony and also connection in between the foot in the hip. Very, very important frontal plane. Never forget it. It's very hard to train in a gym at high speed with regular device. It's the only thing I've ever seen I was able to. Same thing for upper body. We have to stabilize in hockey. There's a lot of impact. And this is very good for serratus anterior, but on the lateral part. Very high load eccentrically. He has to control his core, but also big carry over into the scapula, basically on the serratus anterior. Very interesting movement. Now we do a lot of multi-contraction type of training. Very pure. He has a lot of weight on that. There's 2 pro discs, and he's breaking inertia. Very, very high power. And then right away after, we're going to go to combine with the movement at high speed. Now that he created a potential, now he has to carry, he has to transfer that elastic right away in a superset. He has to transfer that elastic energy that he just gained on the D. And it's very, very efficient too. They get so quick and fast. Same principle, we use it as a warm-up. This is with the Florida Panthers. That's Jonathan Huberdeau's system on the V. This is one of his pre-game warm-up. We go on a time of 10 seconds, and he only use like a large disc, very, very quick activation, has 2 roles. Plays cardiovascular adaptation and also stabilize his ankle, especially with the Achilles tendon that he had, and also for total body awareness. Different angles of the movement we'll use. We have someone in the back to tell him where to go, to direct. He has like a hockey stick, and he has to follow the direction, always changing direction, changing hands to create an adaptation, not only at the body, but also at the brain level. Very interesting. Same thing forward. We'll do 2 rounds of that. 15 minutes is all warmed up. He'll do 2-3 rounds on the D and V, and he's ready. He gets dressed, and he goes to the rink. This is at the rink in Florida. I kept that slide because he's a hockey player that he's never used the D before in his life. Played American League a long time ago because he's not a young guy. And I wanted to show him, like, when you take skates, how your brain's going to react as a proprioception, and you're going to be able to change your angle. Check very closely what he looks like the first time. That's his first time ever. He looks like not that safe, and you see the movement is not, I mean, it's not very elegant. It's kind of tentative, and his posture, and he doesn't really, but it was his first time. I've seen worse. Now it says, okay, JP, put your skates on. Obviously for him, it's easier because he's a hockey player. But it's not easy on that. Believe me, put skates on it. That's why I have these little rubber mats from the arena to protect the blades and my machine too. Then right away, he removed the skate, says, okay, let's do a test. I love to test before and after. Check his movement now, right away. See the fluidity of the movement. It's way safe, way better. This is within 2 minutes. That's how fast, when you know how to use these devices, you could modify a movement pattern. This is what I like about it. And for him, now he wants to buy one for his hockey school because he said, listen, wow. And he brings me his kids, and that's really interesting on that. But the next generation, guys, will be that. And you're one of the first one to see that. We use it on the ice now. We started last year. This is a type of warm-up. We do a mix with the Mini V, very portable, weighs nothing, easy to transport. And even my old D, the one behind me, this is the Reg Brassard. And we prefer to use a handle. It's easier to move around. And also for hockey, it's very important to increase the grip strength and the power. And that's really effective before we get on the ice. And then we combine it with more high-specific movement that you will see. Again, this is one of the best hockey players in the world, Derek Brassard. Don't try that if you've never done it, because that's really, you need a good timing. But they saw right away a good transfer. Again, this I could guarantee more what I do on this than I do on the ice. Same principle. That was his first time. Plays for the Coyotes, Phoenix Coyotes. That's one. See, you see the looseness. He got better, but I wanted to keep that clip because I direct him with my. I'm on the ice with him with my stick. But the brain, the timing from the machine. But when he removed it, started to skate. you're like, wow, says that's so easy. We do the same, a little more specific. This is one of my young hockey player, Lucas Mercury, going to get drafted this year, and it's not easy. He's a big kid, like 1.95 m, and to control the puck while the V pulls you really helped him a lot is controlling. Also with our goalies, that's very interesting. He bought his own device. Max and I, we went near his school. He's in a prep school. The kid is only 17. Now I got a big offer for NCAA Division I now. And he practiced all his teammates. They love it. And very interesting. He always had groin problem. This is one example. We do about 50 different type of movement. And the grand finale, guys, this is what I did a couple of days ago with my doctor. Again, the sound is there. It lasts like 50 seconds. This is the one that we'll see tomorrow.
Up, down. That's it. Good.
That's Jonathan Huberdeau at the bottom. And the doctor, our radiologist. It is beautiful.
Good vision, guys. Perfect. Nice. Good. And stop. And side to side with the big toe. Très, très beau. Go down deep.
That's why I mix it with French and English.
And go. Nice. Absorb. Perfect. Nice. Super, guys. Très bon, ça. Nice. Oh, yeah. Good speed. Stop. No, my pro.
I just told him normally we'll take the pro on top right after. That's basically, see, with these guys, that's the advantage of Zoom. I'm able to train many people at the same time, but also with the voice. And that's very, very important on that. And again, the guy on the left, he's a doctor. He's our head radiologist. He's able to train with an NHL player. He has a beautiful, nice little mini V in his corner. He has his own device, and that's his nice little gym in his basement he has. And that's how we work with athletes. And that's the Zoom guy is going to be the future to work interactive. And that's very, very interesting. Thank you for your attention. I didn't go too much over, guys. Not bad. 1 minute over. Not bad.
That's not bad for you.
Yes. I agree. I'll just stop.
Only when me and Paul travel together and we do workshops, I'll be sitting in the back to show Paul the watch. You know,
he's like the producer on TV. He does like, hey, whoa, stop it. But anyway, I get excited. I love what I do, and even after 38 years.
No, absolutely. That's the greatest part about it, Paul. When you love it, you love the device, you love what you do, it's always fantastic to see that. Marco?
Yes. Okay. Here we
are.
are.
Okay, Marco. Was it too long? Was perfect?
No, it was perfect. Was perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. Okay, I have one question for you, about the patterns and the brain that you spoke before in your presentation. You are changing continuously every exercise a bit every time. Can you tell us a bit more of this type of approach with an eye on DESMOTEC devices?
But I don't really understand the question.
The question is, I know your approach with this type of technology and your approach in also how you approach the exercise progressions, and you change a bit every exercise every time, maybe changing, I don't know, the resistance like bands, like free weights, like isolation device.
Okay. I thought you taught on the device. Yeah, I like to use different multi-contraction on it because, I mean, especially hockey is a very, 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 it could be the toughest sport to prepare for because you need balance because you got skates. You need power, obviously, but you also need work capacity very high. You need to be able to accelerate, decelerate constantly for, like most of the good players like Huberdeau will play about 20 minutes a game, 82 games a year plus playoffs. That's why we need to create all different type of adaptation that when they're on the ice, they play hockey. They don't do hockey. This is why I do a lot of multi-contraction, always in mind of speed of contraction and postural control and injury prevention all the time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I think that we finished with our presentation, and the goal of this webinar was to bring knowledge from different areas And as you've seen also, if someone is more on the physio area and someone is more on the strength coach field, there are many common points as we see in these presentations. And this was also the concept of this webinar. So bringing together different areas and different fields. So for that now, we'll do a round table with all the specialists, and we are open to all your questions. So if you want to make questions, use the Q&A tab and we will do question. But before, please answer to the last poll.
The what one?
Is this one? Okay.
Let's see it.
Just quickly, everybody, keep in mind that we'll be doing some other webinars later on in the next coming months. Next month, we will definitely have another one. So keep an eye out. You're all registered, so you will receive our newsletters with a lot of information, not only about DESMOTEC, but also about our experts and how to eventually ask questions and get more information from them as well. So this is also very important. When we finish the webinar, just stay online for 1 minute, since we have a survey that will go out to everybody. And like I explained right in the beginning, if you can fill in the survey, it just makes us being able to put together webinars for exactly what you need and make us perform a lot better for you. So that's much appreciated. And send in your question, guys. You've got 4 great experts here. Let's hammer them with a couple of really good questions.
Okay, we will wait, Max, a bit, so the people will end the funnel survey. Okay, and then we start with the round table. So guys, if you have one question, please use the chat or the Q&A tab, and we will answer to your questions. And I know that we have already a good question from Nuno Jimenez and also from Fabrizio. Okay, now also from Sebastian. Okay. We'll wait some seconds, and I really appreciate your presentation, guys. So they are really wonderful. We will send, I want also to say, Max, that after this webinar, we will send the registration of this webinar. And also we will send the PDF of each presentation.
Absolutely. Everybody that's registered will receive that. Just give us a couple of days to put it together. We like to edit, sort of make it look better for everybody. A bit of Photoshop. Some of us are getting older. So, you know, at least we look a little better. So in the next couple of days, everybody will start receiving all the videos of the webinar, and they'll get all the questions also. We'll put down the questions for you with all the answers. So anybody that didn't maybe hear the answer or anything like that will be able to pick that up from the emails.
Okay, I will end the polling. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So now we will start. I want to make the first question to Lucas. So please, Lucas, unmute yourself. Okay, thank you so much. And because it's about shoulder. And about shoulder rehab, do you include also activation of serratus anterior?
I think Roberto shows video with push-ups with a basketball player. I made the same thing, but not often. For me, it's a bit hard to isolate the dentlanter. I don't know how to say serratus, sorry. It's a bit it's a bit hard to isolate it, and then we finish to work with other muscles. So I don't use it with isoinertial, but I use it with simple push-up, diamond push-ups, things like this. With a medicine ball too.
Of course, you integrate this type of activation with other type of exercises. So, okay. And Paul, there is also a question for you. Do you see any difference in training focuses from USA to Canadian athletes? And do you adapt exercise to the style of play?
The first question, yes, there's a big difference in between US. In hockey, the biggest problem is that a lot of outside of the northern part of the US, many have never played the game. And if you've never played hockey, a lot of their training system is based on American football. And it's the contraction are way too slow, and there's not a lot of unilateral movement and change direction. And I had my fair of arguments with some of the coaches when I was in my time, because first of all, they could never skate. And until you put skates on, you do not understand what is hockey. And that's the biggest. You don't need to be a pro, but you need to be at least, like Max is an expert in, he plays rugby. He taught me a lot about the game when we were in China, because if I would ever play, I work with rugby players, I would need an expert with me. Okay, Paul, here's that's how it feels, because if I've never played the game, that's the biggest thing. What was the second one, Marco?
The second is, do you adapt exercises to the style of play?
No, I adapt exercise to the posture of the athlete all the time. It's, for me, the postural system is the house. I start with the foundation. I make sure that the house, then whatever we'll do after, it's going to happen. But always the foundation first. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Now I want to make a question to Toma. So please, Toma, because there is a question from Sergey. And does DESMOTEC have some special standard rehab protocols for different injuries with all phases from injury to back to sport?
Okay, so yes, Sergey, it's very hard to have only, let's say, one standard protocol for ACL or shoulder or something like that. We do get our standard movement patterns, so we are trying to train only on that pattern, but everything is depending on the patient, what kind of intervention he had. It's not always the timing of the patient. Okay, he's got 2 months, but maybe in 2 months he cannot do something that another patient can make it in I don't know, in 1 month. So that is everything depending on the patient. But yes, we are guided, all the physio things with DESMOTEC, we are guided by international rehab protocols, and we try to integrate them into DESMOTEC training system.
Okay, perfect. Now we have one question from Matteo Berti, and I want to do this question to Roberto. And if Matteo is asking if it's possible to manage the velocity of concentric and eccentric phases.
You can manage the velocity with changing the inertia. So if you first you need that who has to push with maximal effort, and then you can manage it with high speed, high velocity with lower inertia, and the opposite, high inertia, low velocity. But also you can work with really high weight and really low velocity. So it's up to the inertia.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Roberto. And now, Max, because James is also asking something specific, and I want to make this question to you because I know that you are a technician. So, and with this equipment, James is asking if we want to get an eccentric overload. Does this equipment have a way to achieve this with a motor, or is something that you control? Is more natural? You can see also the question in the chat.
Okay, so the first very important part that we need to clarify is that there is no motor in the sense of a traditional motor in the devices. Okay, the devices work on a system of inertia, like the old yo-yo system that you used to play as a kid. Okay, so what happens is that when it gets to the end of the tension, the motor will spin, or the flywheel will spin in the opposite direction. Okay, and this will create, if you are, for instance, on the D line, pushing upwards, you will work on a concentric phase. When you are braking on the downward side, you're working on an eccentric phase. Okay, so if you want to change, or if you want to increase the eccentric overload side, the way normally that a lot of the trainers will get this to happen is that you will push as much as you can on the concentric phase and then brake as quick as you can on the eccentric side. By braking very quickly and creating a lot of force on the concentric side, you create an overload on the eccentric side. Okay? So hopefully that's answered the question. Thanks, Marco, considering I'm not a technical person. And maybe if one of the guys want to jump in at any stage, they're more than welcome to.
Okay, perfect. We'll wait maybe for other questions. Okay. Toma, it's always Sergey. If sportsmen have ACL damage, not all the part of ACL, maybe a partial rupture of ACL, is it possible to go back to sport without surgery in your experience? And if you use extrinsic training in this type of rehab work?
Now, the correct answer is like this. Normally, if it's a top athlete, the indication is surgery, because normally for a top athlete, you need to have surgery done. All the studies shown that for the top players, the surgery must be done. For normal sportsmen, then you can choose to go more conservative, and yes, you can go back to sport without any surgery using the eccentric overload. But that is depending on the grade of the tier, and after that is very important to know, okay, what sport, his pattern movements, if he goes more in the valgus of knee, all kinds of biomechanics, and also working with eccentric and more into inertial part.
Okay, thank you so much, Toma. Now, another question from Joao Ferreira, and I want to ask this question to Roberto. Do you use tests done at DESMOTEC or with the DESMOTEC devices during the season or pre-season to check if you are able to return to training, return to play, or return to performance after injury? But also, Lucas, if you want to ask to answer after Roberto, you are welcome.
Okay, that's a great question. Actually, it's all about logistics and not yet, but next steps are to do that, because it's really important to have a base point to start thinking about injuries and with what level we arrive and we achieve after the recovery process. So I think that's a great thing to do every time at the beginning of the season.
Okay, Lucas?
Yeah, I think too that's a great thing to do. As I have said, we are currently working on a shoulder protocol. So not yet, but maybe soon. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I can also say that in my experience, I use this machine, but of course I'm working with one athlete because my team is made by one athlete. And I use this type of technology to test in the preseason during the competitive also period, but also I measure my athlete every month. So I have all the tests done and I can see which are the changes every month and how to work and where to work in a specific way. So more on eccentric, more on concentric, more on velocity of the movement, more on the strength. So it's very useful. And I want also to answer to James that is asking if this equipment comes with an app, and all this equipment comes with an app, a specific app, and you can measure all the values. But if you want more information, you can ask to DESMOTEC and they will give you all the information that you need.
Let me just jump in, Marco. More than an app, we have a complete software system that is available when you purchase the device. So every single device has this integrated software system. Every single device comes with its own pad. So you don't need to go and buy or use phones or anything like that. You've got a fantastic pad with the software system. And it's a software system that gives you a huge amount of data. So each individual trainer or physio can decide what he wants to use, how he wants to use it, keeping in mind all this data is available in cloud, it's available in real time. So you have really everything that you need from a software point. You will also see that when you receive the videos, there will be a link that will explain in detail the software, the devices, just so that you've got all the information at your fingertips.
Okay, perfect. And maybe we will have a question for Thomas. Okay, Thomas and Paul, because I know that this is your areas. Can we train fascia with DESMOTEC? Paul?
Yes, we can.
And
Actually, we did with the radiologist. We did a lot of research on it, and we knew it with Kudos and Thomas too. We worked together, and I mean, yes, you see actually right on the ultrasound immediately after a set, we did patella tendon and we did Achilles tendon, and you see the reorganization of the fibers immediately. It's very interesting, and also the elastic strength increased. You see the density of we did the test of 3 sets of 10 reps. We did a cross from a belt squat. We wanted to see the data, not with a barbell squat, but it's like a belt with a squat closest to our device, but without isoinertial. And there was no change at the tendons. Actually, there was a lot of change in the muscle. That's why they get sore from regular training. But on this, the adaptation was more at the fascia. And that's why we think it's the speed of the eccentric overload that makes a difference on that, because we're able to achieve very high speed and other devices can't. And this is and when we tested, we did a large disc with a medium, like our standardized. And it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it's important to train the fascia in very small movements, but in very fast way, because the fascia can transmit the energy through the force through all the body. So that meaning if you got a soccer player or an NHL player, and when they do the body check, then the body need to absorb all the force and transmit it to the legs and so on. Otherwise, they will have an injury. So yes, you can train it, but it needs to be very fast and short movement.
Okay, thank you. And question from James, and that is open to all of you. Is there a minimum age to start training with this kind of equipment? Example is 13 years old, too young, or can this be used instead of traditional weights, or should it be used in conjunction to traditional weights? Paul?
We have athletes up to like the radiologist's sons. Dr. Boilly, one of his sons is 5 years old and the other one is 8, and they're already on it. Then, and his wife has a PhD in neuroscience. Then they're very safe. She's a professor at McGill University. And they've seen big difference already to all motor skills. That's our next research at the brain level with MRI, but it's really beneficial for the kids, again, under control and under very good, proper teaching. But they have very good results pretty quick. Way more than anything else I've seen with my young hockey players.
Yeah, Marco, I agree with Paul. I think that after the coordination phase, you can go on. 13 years old is okay, for sure.
And
we have even younger than I tell you, 5, 6 years old, and they're working on it. But they love it. We make games. We play it like a game, like we're attaching. And they when you remove it, they move so well. And they have fun with it because it's like kind of a toy.
The small advantage for working with a kid on the DESMOTEC is that the brain is very childish. So you can put him, and the child will understand very quickly what's about the eccentric overload. Meanwhile, with the adult, you need to modify the pattern of the movement and also to modify the brain adaptation. So that's why, yes, for kids, it's very easy. You put a lightweight and you just play with him.
Okay, thank you guys. There are two interesting questions, and then I will give the words to Gabriele that will explain something more on this technology, because we want to go into details. But before, guys, and is open to all of you, do you know other inertial devices, and why do you choose the DESMOTEC device for your athletes? I have the answer in my point of view.
I've tested over the years, because I mean, again, I'm the old guy, and I always felt the other device, until I met the system from DESMOTEC, too slow. The overload, if you analyze sports, eccentric never happens at the bottom or in a slow manner. It's in the transition. It's very quick. And again, if you don't train that part, why do it? Just for eccentric training? Eccentric training creates a lot of hypertrophy. You have to be careful, but you have to be able to use what we call functional hypertrophy. It means that you got whatever you gain as muscle size, you will be able to transfer into power development on the pitch or on the ice. And this is where that device really helped us to increase, but also because of the speed of contraction, whatever you gain, you're able to transfer it. And that's the only device I've seen that does that.
Okay. Roberto?
Another thing is the load cells. Those are really important. You can understand balance from left and right, but you can also test with the isometric test and understand how can you express strength in how much time. So load cells, not all the other devices has, and that's a really important thing.
Okay. And Toma?
Yes, this question. Yeah. So is the only device that you can take it from the first phase of rehab, okay, after 1 week of surgery, and you can go through all the range until the return to play, because it can give you, okay, eccentric overload. Yes, you can have high speed. Yes, you can have elasticity. You can have everything, and especially the advantage of you can work all the body. You don't have any movement pattern that you cannot train it with it. So you don't need a lot of other equipment as kettlebells to put on the device to maintain. So the device is built exactly to be used properly. So
perfect. Lucas?
Yeah, we're starting using the yo-yo, but with different movement, with footwork, with something like this. But there is nothing easier than the V-line and than DESMOTEC for me.
Okay, I agree with all of you, because I think that these are special point, and in favor of DESMOTEC, of course the software, of course that all the machines comes with the encoder, so you can measure every exercise, and the encoder is really precise on what you measure. And also, of course, as say Roberto, if you want also, you can have load cells to measure the force on the ground. And I use a lot, because for me it's really important how much you push on the ground. So, but now we want also to explain a bit more this type of technology. So I will give the word to Gabriele. Hi, Gabriele, and welcome aboard. Okay, you can share your presentation and explain a bit more how is this type of technology to all the people. And then we have the last question that is from Sergey. So you can proceed, Gabriele, and then we will answer to the last question.
Okay, I will just introduce briefly the software and what the software can do. So basically, from what we can have from a basic test. I will just check the right slide from here, and just give me a second, and I will be ready. Okay, from here. So as you said, you can use these devices from the starting of the rehab phase. So for example, you can start for a basic standard balance test like this one. So as you see, the person is standing on the platforms, and you can see immediately the differences between the legs. So for example, here is without nothing, so without using the flywheel, I mean. On the other side, there is the same person that can be tested using, for example, a particular angle of the knee, for example. Here, the person is just pushing, and you can see during this, for example, 15 seconds, this is an isometric test, it's like 15 seconds, and you can see the total amount of the load on the cells and the differences between left and right. This is just an example about the starting point from a person. On the other side, you can use the isometric test also on the V line. For example, here you can see an external rotation for the shoulder, and you can see immediately the instant load, the average kilograms pulled, and also the maximum. So you can see if in this 15 seconds you can maintain and the total amount of kilos that the person pull on the device. This is just example. So as you see, you can use this kind of test to test obviously shoulder, but you can move this load cell from top to down, so each position can be tested, I mean. And this is, for example, a way to use the software for record some data from the starting point to the let me say in the mid-season or at the end of the season. And you can see, let me say, the progression. Here, for example, another simple slide that explains two different kinds of exercises. For example, on the left, these exercises, it's, as you see, very continuous. So the person it asks the person to be very continuous. So as you see, the power peaks are not eccentrically better, but it's the focus of this workout is to keep the timing, so understanding the rhythm. Then on the other side, so this one, it's the focus is more on the eccentric. So you can monitor also the eccentric on each reps. So as you see, these reps with the let me say orange bar a little bit higher than the red one, it means that you can monitor if the person are managing in a good way the eccentric overload. That's something you can monitor immediately in a real time, and also something you can store in the data storage on the cloud. So basically, what you can have from the software is like that in terms of power and also force. That's just an example of what we can have. Here also another interesting thing we can add to the overall view is just an example of an exercises, and where you can see on each reps where the person is pushing more. So you can have this information also, for example, at in the protocol of let me say, for example, an ACL injury, you can see if the person is good in maintaining half and half the balance in two legs or not. That's just examples of what you can have. So that's my intervention is just about what the software can give you. And well, if you have any question, I'm available also with the other guys. So thanks, and I will stop my screen share, and yeah, I'm here if you have any question.
Okay, thank you so much, Gabriele. And I have the last question for Lucas. I know that Lucas are working on the shoulder, but also to Toma. So Sergey is also asking if when we can start eccentric training after surgery. As his experience, he thinks that it's possible, for example, 6 weeks after the surgery, and how it depends this type of work. So in your experience, when you start to work on eccentric training after surgery on ACL?
For me, it depends on your use of isoinertial. I think there is many things to do before. It's a big help, but for me, not in first time, but for sure we can start really early in the rehab, but I don't use it like this. I use it more for the co-contraction, more for the functional movement, something like this. I don't have this use.
Okay, Thomas?
Yes, so depends on the joint, because for an ACL it's easy. I use it after 2 weeks. I start using the D-line, especially because it's a closed chain. So then everything what happens in the knee, it's very safe. Okay, it's normal to start working in closed chain. So in the first phase, I don't use a lot of V, because in open, then you have a slight chance to make some rupture on the graft. But for shoulder, depends on the surgery, if you need to move the shoulder or not. But you can still use it for the isometric workout. But normally for an ACL, yeah, I put the patient after the 2 weeks. I put 2 pro disc, because I want a very slow movement, okay, just to gain muscle growth. But I don't want speed. So in the first phase, yes, you can use it.
Okay, perfect. And Paul, can you share with us your experience with ACL after ACL surgery, and what are you doing focusing on eccentric trainings?
As a posturologist, the first thing, like Thomas agrees with that, we check the feet. We make sure that we have to neutralize. You have a valgus foot. That's going to be the number one. First of all, non-impact ACL, 90% of them, if you check the feet, they have either flat feet or a valgus foot. Then even if you repair it and you then change the cause, then it will not hold, or it may create injuries. Second, depending what they use. If they use the patella tendon or they use the semimembranosus, that's going to be a different rehab also. That's why patella tendon replacement, when they use it, you have to be very, very careful with tendinopathy. But same protocol as Thomas said, we use, first of all, when I neutralize the foot, I will start a lot of using peripheral. Let's say I have one of my athletes in Italy now, he's a goalie. He started as he got surgery, Fred Cloutier. Then we started right away. The day after, we started on the ankle, right away on the hip, peripheral, abdominals, all stuff like Roberto said with his guys. And then by doing that circulation, then you're able to mobilize, and then close kinetic chain, very heavy loads, always monitoring what's happening at the foot. And then after that, when they return to play, they need to go very, very high speed movement and more sport specific. And there's no date, and depending on the quality of the tissue, depending on what they eat and how they feel about it, we work always at the brain level. We use a lot of eye exercise, different type of stuff that we use it's called in neurology, to make sure that the power output in the brain doesn't interfere with the injury also.
Okay, perfect, Paul. Precise as always. So, guys, I think it's enough for today. I want to say a big thank to you for this webinar, and I hope to see you soon in another webinar, and maybe in another contest, not this one of this lockdown. And Max, if you want to say something.
Yes, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We have a lot of experts that are very happy to share the knowledge. You will all get in contact with DESMOTEC, because we'll be sending out the newsletters. So feel free to bombard us with questions. You know, the more informed you are, the more informed you can make your decisions, the better it is for everybody, because you can really understand the value added that DESMOTEC brings to the devices. It's not just about metal, it's about a training system that DESMOTEC has developed. It's about the academy, the experts. You saw some of them today. Some of you were lucky to see the others in the first webinar. We have another one coming up. So the more we can get everybody involved, it's really about sharing knowledge. And DESMOTEC is a world leader in this device. We are there to help everybody, not just to sell a device. So thank you once again, guys. Thanks to everybody that listened in. Thanks to the 4 experts, and thanks above all to you, Marco. First time with us as a moderator. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I hope that my English was good enough to be clear, and this is my goal. And I want to say thanks to Lucas, thanks to Paul, thanks to Toma, Roberto, and of course Gabriele, and also to you, Max, for this webinar, and of course DESMOTEC for letting us to do this webinar. Thank you, guys. For today we are set, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You, Max.
Hey, Paul.